Good afternoon, everyone. It's Brandon Raynor, Naturopath here. Been a bit quiet on YouTube lately because, this little fella here, this beautiful guy, I've been pushing him around in prams and helping look after him in a multitude of ways. He's a beautiful little boy. He's 5 weeks old now. But today, I just wanted to, as I push the pram around my garden, wanted to pose some questions that I've been thinking of and gathering information about. Is obviously the question of vaccination with COVID. So where I sit at the moment is probably on a scale of 1 being anti-vaccination and 100 being pro-vaccination. I'm probably about 55. So just slightly over the 50-50 mark when it comes to pro-vaccination. So I'd like to discuss with you how I got to the point I'm at and, invite comments and any other information. So one of the first things I'd like to mention is, certain things I do really believe that vaccination does help. The polio vaccine seems to be beyond doubt that it's really helped. And one of my great mentors, Dr. Edward Bach, who developed the Bach flower remedies, did a lot of early research into vaccination. And I'm not opposed to the idea that, introducing an inert substance can trigger the immune system to then fight the actual, virus. So the idea makes sense to me, which is why I sit where I do in terms of, more being slightly more pro-vaccination. Obviously, this, COVID disease, it seems to be extremely dangerous, et cetera, especially for people who are, maybe got comorbidities or weakened immune systems, that kind of thing. So where I'm anti-vax is in terms of things like how Pfizer's made so much money out of this vaccine. You would think that in a crisis like this, that companies would try and come together and do something for the greater good. And especially when, from what I understand, they've been funded or they've received like grants and things like that to develop these. And Pfizer's made, enormous amounts of money. And so some of the other companies. That makes me obviously question what their motivation is. Obviously there's a profit motive, and that's, that can be good, but at a, in a crisis situation, they don't seem to certainly be helping a lot of the poor people on the planet, and they seem to be making an awful lot of money. And governments are buying these vaccines for people, whether they want them or not. So taxpayers' money is going to increasing the profits of pharmaceutical companies. And pharmaceutical companies make a lot of donations to, federal and state governments all over the world. And my experiences here in Australia with state and federal governments have been, and their dealings with pharmaceutical companies and medical people have been atrocious. Queensland government, I believe, is 100% corrupt when it comes to the medico-pharmaceutical complex. My dealings with them with the neck cracking, cervical manipulation kind of situation, where medical practitioners, which are commonly doctors, can do supposedly these dangerous procedures without any training whatsoever. And they're a registered profession that's, allowed to practice cervical manipulations, while naturopaths, such as myself, who've had 30 years experience, aren't allowed to. I call that corruption. I call that creating a monopoly under the guise of public health, and I call it absolutely disgraceful. So I believe that the Queensland government is as corrupt as they come when it comes to promoting the interests of pharmaceutical and medical industry, regardless of the safety of what they do. And they don't care, because obviously they've got to either say that cervical manipulations are dangerous, therefore, naturopaths shouldn't do them, and massage therapists shouldn't do them, shiatsu therapists shouldn't do them, even though it's been part of shiatsu for a long time. If they say it's dangerous, then why are medical practitioners allowed to do it without any training in how to do it? And I brought it up with, from the Premier of Queensland down, Deputy Premier, Minister for Health, Crime and Corruption Commission, who just cover up. They cover up for one body after another. So I'm disgusted. I'm disgusted with the prejudice in the Queensland government against natural therapies, against naturopaths, and pro-medicine blindly. And that makes me extremely skeptical of them and their motivation, okay? I believe they are protecting profits of the medical practitioners and protecting their elite position, that they have in society. So profits, position, are all being protected in a corrupt manner by the Queensland government. I also believe that the Australian federal government, and they're a different political party, are also corrupt. I believe that, if we look at this whole pandemic as being similar to like a war, even though it's a war against a virus, not against humans, but wars can be fought against different species. Then, and you look at the number of Americans killed by the pandemic, it's over 600,000 in, August the 1st, 2021. You look at it, then in a war, like you look at World War II, every weapon, like in the Battle of Britain, was pulled out. You had people on the ground, you had the home guard, you had old people, you had young people, you had every research, every bit of weaponry thought, everything going into winning the war against the Nazis. But here in Australia, we have a situation where that's not the case. They're not treating it like that. For example, again, with natural ways to treat or to prevent the spread of SARS-CoV-19, they're not doing anything. Because I wrote to the Minister for Health, Mr. Greg Hunt, and I know that rhymes with another word, and he's a bit like that, but I won't say it. But he's such an idiot. I wrote to him and I said, why aren't you doing any studies on the effects of putting certain essential oils into the air and their killing of viruses? Because studies have been done already with eucalyptus oil and thyme oil and a few other ones as well that have shown like 98, 99% effectiveness at killing, common cold, H1N1 viruses and all sorts of other respiratory viruses, okay? So these studies have been done, but they haven't been done with COVID. And they haven't been done with even more powerful plants like lemon myrtle, which is an extremely potent antiviral tree that grows natively in Australia. And the studies that have been done so far have shown that it's been incredibly antiviral. So I wrote to him and I said, why isn't Australia doing more studies on these essential oils in killing the virus in an airborne situation? And he wrote back to me in his official letter basically saying, well, we haven't done the studies. And I'm like, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Why haven't you done the studies, And I was doing it through my local member of parliament, Lou O'Brien, who's the same member of a political party. And basically it was just like talking to an idiot, this guy, Greg Hunt. And of course, Lou didn't want to admit that. Here's a lemon myrtle tree, by the way. So it grows really well here in Queensland. So instead of the guy going, yeah, that's a great idea. Let's get some studies happening. Let's study eucalyptus oil. Because eucalyptus oil has been used for a long time in Australia for, people inhale it like under a towel in their sink for fighting off common colds and flus. So why aren't these studies being done? And the people that can afford to do these studies are the government. And not only that, they're the ones that have access and that should have access to these viruses. The common person shouldn't have access. They could spread them around like some crazy nut job. So the government has the access to the variants, whether it be the Delta, the Alpha of the COVID thing, and they could study how well putting essential oils into like air conditioning units in hospitals, in libraries, in schools, in all sorts of government buildings, on all sorts of buildings, offices. Because they've done studies in Japan where they put lemon oil into air conditioning units, and it cut down the number of sick days by like 50%. And it also decreased typing errors because lemon enhances the, it kind of makes you more awake. So why aren't these studies being done on lemon myrtle? That's what I have to say. If we got a war going on, when these are cheap, and they would also provide income for Australian farmers, which we could export all around the world, why is the guy supposedly of a liberal national party which represents farmers, why isn't he just listening to somebody who knows? I haven't done the studies, but I want to see them. Who has done? Why? They can be done pretty cheaply, pretty easily. So my opinion of the federal government in Australia is that, one, they're absolutely incompetent. They haven't managed the hotel quarantine system at all. Who puts a quarantine hotels in the middle of big cities? So far, it's like spread like 20 times, like 6 times in Melbourne and Perth and, Sydney now, because all these sick people are right around the heaviest populated places. Like, how stupid is that? You don't quarantine people in your most populated areas. You put them out in the country somewhere. But why aren't studies being done on things like essential oils, especially with this Delta variant that spread in Sydney in a Bondi Junction shopping mall, where I used to go, actually. So it's so stupid, when they have these things, why aren't they doing the studies? So that makes me think that they're in the pockets of these pharmaceutical companies that make big donations to the federal government, to the state government, both parties in Australia, probably in America. So you got the pharmaceutical companies basically wanting their view of medicine, no prevention, nothing. So it's not a war, it's a corrupt war. It's a war. That means that they're after their profits, not after the care of the people, and the politicians are being their puppets. So that makes me extremely skeptical about, whatever they propose, which is unfortunate. If vaccination can help people, when you've got corruption in government, instead of actually presenting it in a non-corrupt way from non-corrupt people, you got these people that are so blatantly corrupt. They're proud of their corruption, like here in Queensland. It's disgusting. But also the federal health minister, he's a fucking idiot. Absolute dumb fuck, irresponsible prick. That's what I think. Stupid guy. And I'm not impressed with Lou O'Brien, my local member, who basically ignores me now. Ooh, because I fucking, spoke the truth. What his party mates have told him not to talk to people who actually care about the Australian people. Ridiculous. So that makes me, increase that 45% that's anti. Yeah, I don't trust them. I don't trust the federal health. I don't trust the Queensland health. And I don't trust the pharmaceutical companies themselves, especially ones like that are making money. Who trusts somebody who's making a lot of money? People will lie to make money all the time, unfortunately. It's sad, but they do. So, but that's, again, not to say I'm anti-vaccination, but I'm looking at both sides of the picture here. So, like I say, we got this, obviously, from all I can see, I'm 99% sure it's true that this pandemic is raging. Some people say it's not. Maybe they're right. There's always been false instances set up, like the Germans used certain things to false flag incidents, like got Polish army concentration camp inmates, dressed them in Polish army uniforms and made out like they attacked a German border post, and that's what started World War II. And the same thing with like the Gulf of Tonkin incident and starting the Vietnam War. People always make these false flag things, right? A lot of people, believe that 9/11 was a false flag incident. I don't know that for sure. I don't know either way. But people do say that, right, in order to justify the invasion of Afghanistan and somehow or other Iraq. Although, of course, there was just a bunch of lies about weapons of mass destruction. But keep up the lies. You research into that one. That's an atrocious. They didn't care what the intelligence community really had to say. They just wanted to invade Iraq. A lot of oil, that sort of thing there. So Afghanistan, there's opium. I'm skeptical. I've seen a lot of stuff where the government lies. They create false flags. So that's a possibility too. I'm not ruling it out, but neither am I subscribing to it, because there has been pandemics before. Obviously, the pandemic of 1919 was extremely deadly, from another respiratory virus. So I don't think that was a false flag incident or anything. So there's no doubt about it that there can be genuine pandemics, and I'm 99% convinced that this is one. The 1% leaves room for skepticism about these different things. So then my other points that I'm skeptical of are that these new vaccinations have to do with this mRNA business, which is new and not really researched as the long-term effects that it has on people. And I don't know much about that, but that makes me also skeptical. However, on the pro side, as I say, we can see that, you know, many people end up very sick with COVID. You know, whether, you know, the British Prime Minister, I know at the height of the pandemic in 2020 was saying, you know, people need to lose weight, people need to get healthier. And I believe that that's very true as well. You know, I've lost 32 kilograms in the last sort of year and a half. And eating fresh foods, eating healthy foods, all these kinds of things from a naturopathic point of view are going to increase your immune system. And how much that's being promoted, again, I'm skeptical because the government's bought out by industries like the meat industry and, you know, that sort of thing where they want to have meat promoted in schools and things despite all the unhealthy attributes that, you know, meats can bring to people. So again, their hands are very much in the pharmaceutical approach instead of, you know, prevention. So anyway, that's just my thoughts, you know. As I say, I haven't had a lot of time to post YouTube videos. I've been just getting by, trying to get a good night's sleep. You can see the bags under the eyes here a bit. Ephraim's had a little bit of colic and that sort of thing. It's kept us awake, and you know, we're just trying to. And then Ellie's been adapting to it. So my main priority has been at home. And we're lucky right now. I don't even have the choice to take the vaccine because the Australian government's been so ineffective at getting it to people that here in Gympie it's not even available, especially the one they recommend. They keep changing what they recommend from AstraZeneca, then saying it's not safe because of all the people dying from blood clots. Now they're saying Pfizer, but it's not even available in Gympie. So I'm using this time to, you know, just reflect and think about what my decision will be about it. And, you know, my sister just ended up posting a thing, which was interesting, from the ABC, all about how, you know, how deadly it is and how dangerous, you know, how much suffering people undergo sometimes for those people that get a bad bout of it, you know. And obviously, you know, I don't want to undergo that. I don't want my loved ones to undergo that either. So, you know, I do sit closely, almost on the fence, although I am considering getting the vaccine when it becomes available, or if it does. And then I got to think about which one, and overcome my skepticism a bit more, because I don't trust the government because of their absolute incompetence, lies, and basic being bought out by industries which care more about their profits than about people. So anyway, I invite you guys to comment, express your, you know, give me as much information on both sides of the story. I know a lot of friends on both sides of the camp, so love to hear both sides of the story. Yeah, look forward to making some more massage videos soon. All right, take care. So I just wanted to add a little bit more, just some thoughts since I did that video a few minutes ago. Well, first of all, we've got now my daughter cruising around with my son, and yeah, you beautiful girl. He's there in the pram. Yeah, I'm just doing a video there. So a couple other issues I wanted to talk about in regards to vaccination are, I think, you know, certain things have lost credibility when like the CIA used their vaccination, the polio vaccine, to find Osama bin Laden, because, you know, he was hidden in a luxury mansion about a kilometer away from the Pakistani military academy. So they had to try and do a false vaccination campaign to locate him, you know, with all their intelligence and their allies in the Pakistani military. So they did a cover-up. You can research this on Google, of a polio campaign, you know, vaccinating polio, to actually find him. So the CIA have been, whoops, we're just going down a hill here. The CIA have been using decided to use vaccination campaigns as covers for other motives. So which is unfortunate, I think, because there's a lot of mistrust. Wait a minute, sweetie. There's a lot of mistrust around. So yeah, the other aspect that I'm deeply opposed to in Australia, we have this governmental policy called no jab, no pay. And what it means is that if you don't get your children vaccinated for certain diseases and things like that, then you can't get government benefits. So they basically they use economic coercion to force you to vaccinate. And yet they don't declare that they're getting, one of the largest donators to both major political parties in Australia, which are the LNP and the Labour Party. Both parties get huge donations from the pharmaceutical industries. So they have this whole thing that, instead of like an honest government going, hey, we got a conflict of interest here because, we're getting paid by these people, and then we're telling you have to have their medicines. That would be considered a conflict of interest. Why don't they say, we don't, how about no government payments, from pharmaceutical industries, or shall I say, no payments from pharmaceutical industries to government, then let the government make decisions based impartially. Because, that's just a classic case of potential corruption there, where industry donates to government, and then the government, of course, makes decisions that are financially beneficial for those industries, regardless of public health. And that's my concern. I think the no jab, no pay philosophy in Australia is, attempt by economic coercion by a government that's financed by the pharmaceutical industry. They shouldn't be taking donations from the pharmaceutical industry if they want to make decisions that are beneficial to them, because that otherwise it exposes themselves to allegations of corruption. That's exactly what's going on, in my opinion, is that there's huge undue influence by pharmaceutical industries, the medical industry, etc., which I've detailed before. So that's some other concerns that I have about the whole thing, where the government should clear up their act, not accept campaign donations from pharmaceutical companies while trying to force people to be vaccinated, or even try and act like they're independent, and then ignore natural therapies approaches, which are in the benefit of everybody, but they don't profit one single corporation or a monopoly of corporations, because natural remedies can't be patented and they can't be controlled because they're owned by nature, by God. There's something that's for everyone, like lemon myrtle, as I was talking about before. So this is corruption. So I don't like all of that. So it makes me less trusting of the government.